Ahoj všichni. It's been a really tough year for me to make videos about this beautiful city when I feel like I've been stuck inside for years. One of Hansa and my favorite hobbies is to explore new restaurants and pubs and food in Prague. Is eating a hobby? And everyone just knows that this year has been devastating to the restaurant and tourism industry, not just in Prague, but all around the world. No one knows what those industries are going to look like after this is all over, but I think we're all certain that it's not going to be the same as it was. But that can be a good thing. So it is with great optimism about the year ahead that I bring you this interview with Jan from Taste of Prague, the go-to blog and Instagram account to find out all you need to know about really great food in this city and beyond. And here's the optimism part. I'm still holding my thumbs that 2021 is going to be a vast improvement on last year. And if you're watching this video from abroad because you're dying to come to Prague and check it out and you're doing some research and finding out all you need to know about the food scene here, you should definitely subscribe to my channel because that's what I do. I make it my mission to share everything I've learned about this city and this country and these people and share it with you. We sat down at Eska, one of my favorite restaurants in the city. This was only a few hours before the second lockdown took effect this year. We talk about the tourism industry in Prague, both before and after COVID, why you definitely want to visit Prague, and why you also definitely want to leave Prague. We'll talk about common misconceptions that foreigners have of the Czech Republic, and why you shouldn't necessarily get travel advice from other tourists. Tak, jedeme dál. So Jan, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. This is, I've been a big fan of yours. We both have.
I've been a big fan of yours.
Oh, that's ridiculous. You've been doing what you're doing for 7, 8 years?
9 years this year.
Whose idea was it to leave your corporate jobs and to start something as foolish as a food company?
Well, obviously it was my wife's idea.
Obviously.
Yeah, obviously. So she was a lawyer. She hated it. You know, I had a job still. I was a freelance translator and interpreter for law firms.
Yes.
So I kept that, and in the meantime, we did Taste of Prague as a plan B, really. Yeah, and then Taste of Prague snowballed into what it eventually became.
Mm-hmm. You seem to be, both of you seem to be really passionate about food and what you do. Did you grow up with some sort of grandmother or mother that really enforced love of food into you?
I think so. I was not a huge foodie when we started. Zuzi was more a foodie than I was. She grew up in the countryside more than I did, maybe. I stayed with my grandma until I was maybe 5. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I still, I would spend most of my summers in the countryside, and, she loved to cook, I loved to eat. Mm-hmm. And Zuzi's family, they're all fantastic cooks and they bake like angels.
That brings me to the Czech menu. So because I'm married to an American,
yep.
My only exposure to Czech food is really in the restaurants. And in Czech restaurants, you will see the standard goulash, pepřo, knedlo zelo, you'd see svičková, maybe some str. So what is one dish that you're not going to find on a Czech menu that a babička would cook, and will you introduce me to that babička?
Oh, okay. Well, I think babičkas actually do cook a lot of. I think what you don't see in restaurants as much as a babička would cook would be, nose to tail. You would do something like, you would do something like tripe soup. That's actually Zuzi's mom's favorite. Uh-huh. Or they would do. Maybe I think also more vegetarian dishes, like my grandma would do. She's from Eastern Slovakia, so she would do more like stuffed, bell peppers in tomato sauce and maybe some dill sauces, stuff like that. So I think that's kind of the grandma cooking that I remember. And also then there's one dish. It's not entirely Czech, but it's kind of yeast dough buns with filled with jam, and it's with a lot of butter and that was my grandma's favorite, just Nesquik, just Czech Nesquik, granko back then. Uh-huh. She just put a big pile and just kind of mash it into the hot butter. You get a hot Nutella situation.
Oh, that
and
sounds amazing.
It was amazing, yeah.
You have a son.
Yes.
Uh-huh, and how old is he?
He's 3.
He's 3?
He turned 3 a week ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I see him all over, mainly in photos on Instagram with Zuzi. And I think, wow, this child has the most exposure to good food of any child I know. So how has having him changed how you explore food when you travel, things like that?
Well, we like to eat faster now because, I mean, there's a shelf life on this. You know, if he's sleeping, he's going to wake up. I mean, we don't serve him particularly anything that we would not eat. Like, he doesn't have a separate menu from us. We know what he's going to eat, so we order something that we can, I think, all agree on. Since he was born, I've had a minibar at home, which is, I thought before it was like such a 70s thing, you know, like the Globe or whatever. And, you know, it's like Big Lebowski kind of thing. But then, you know, like, you know, but the thing is that, like, you know, especially when you're, you know, when the mom is breastfeeding, you know, you can't I won't drink a bottle of wine, and wine goes bad, you know, like, I don't drink beer at home. So spirits were like the logical choice now. You know, like, they don't go off ever. And, you know, and like when he goes to sleep, I start drinking, basically. That's the idea. Yeah.
It's very classic. Note to husband who's filming this, we should get a minibar at home.
Yeah, you should get a minibar.
I primarily got to know you and your company through your Instagram page. Hugely famous. You have to go on the Instagram, Taste of Prague, and I just love following you as you explore, and you just seem like you really enjoy the entire adventure. When we travel, we tend to look up Instagram accounts from the cities where we go, and I can see, oh, that looks like a good restaurant, that too. So what is the added value of having an actual tour guide when people just go online and check out food pictures of restaurants?
It's a very good question. I think that sometimes if you look on Instagram, like the most Instagram thing out of Prague, I think right now would be, well, you know, when we had tourism, would be at the Delník. And that's wrong. That's just simply wrong.
I've watched Honest Guide, I know it's wrong.
Yeah, so you know, like, thing is sometimes you could just easily fall into hype.
Yeah.
You just go to a place based on Instagram, and like, it looks great, but then you realize it's not real. I mean, it's just you and other people who want to take the same Instagram picture. And also, even if you go there, nobody explains what it means. Like, well, how does it relate to, you know, the Czech reality? When we have tourists, we always answer two questions first. What are we eating, and why are we eating it? Because sometimes you go and just eat it, and you just don't know why you're eating it. Like, I mean, sure, it's a local dish, but then again, it maybe means something deeper. And many people, I think, misjudge our tourists. They think they're food tourists, but they're really cultural tourists dressed as food tourists. We really explain Czech culture and Czech reality, and the food is just the angle. I mean, we eat well on the tours, and we always choose the things that we believe are the best in each category, but there's a bigger story to tell.
Yeah, I love that. That's brilliant. Because I think a lot of people come here and mostly they don't leave the center.
No.
And they think that they can just find what they're looking for. We just need to check traditional Czech food off our list. What's the drink? What's the dessert? What's the thing? And then we move along.
If you Google things, you know, you realize that many of the stories are written by other travelers. And it's just a self-perpetuating thing where, like, you know, somebody writes, and it's all clickbait now, you know, people write like, top 10 things to eat in Prague, and it's usually taken from other websites, and it's just like you just remix it a bit. I mean, you just add something, and it rarely is a local writing this. So it's travelers writing this. I mean, the same thing is with TripAdvisor. It's called TripAdvisor because it's by travelers, you know, who go on trips. We always recommend against relying on TripAdvisor for food because you lose the local perspective. You don't. Like, I mean, not many people who live in Prague actually rate Prague restaurants on TripAdvisor. You know what I mean?
Why would we?
Yeah,
Absolutely,
exactly, you know?
Absolutely.
So it's only the travelers. And so there's a bias towards, like, the beaten path.
Yeah.
But the hidden gems, they usually don't make the cut. So I think having a food tour with a local who's, I think, well-traveled too, because I think that helps you contextualize what you have at home, has the added value of maybe finding something that you were not looking for originally, but is maybe a truer image of what, like, people eat and live than what you found through research online.
When people come to Prague, they're looking, your typical tourist is looking for Czech food. So
Yes.
as the expert, are you ever telling them, and by the way, the best pho is here?
We do recommend it because it tells a story. We have the highest Vietnamese community per capita in the world, pretty much. So I mean, it's a story to tell too. Yeah.
That was very surprising to me when I moved here. A welcome surprise.
I think that's one of the things that people don't expect. Yeah.
So, what are some of the misconceptions that tourists have about Prague, about Czechia when they arrive?
Interesting. So misconceptions. I think for some travelers, there's still like the stigma of Eastern Europe. Like they tend to think that Eastern Europe is one monolithic block that were the same as all the other countries in the Eastern Bloc. It really mostly, I think, relates to our communist past or the misconceptions. I think that people like to define themselves by how different they are to each other, but in reality, they're very similar. Like, I mean, you know this, like you live anywhere, like deep down inside, we're very, very similar. So I think the biggest misconception is that if you like cross the Iron Curtain, it's going to be very different to what you know. It isn't. It's very similar to what you have at home. I think that many people tend to forget that it has a present, that people actually live here, and that it's not just a collection of sites.
It's not Las Vegas.
Yep.
Where you come and drink for cheap.
Yeah.
You
can do that too. That's the other thing. Like cheap out. We've gained a reputation of a party town.
Yeah.
But the fact is that most people who live here don't live like that at all, right?
No. Yeah. When American travelers come to Europe, they typically, even, the partner at a law firm, he typically has 2 weeks of vacation.
Yep.
And he must go to Europe. And he must decide what can we manage in 2 weeks? And he's going to go to Paris, Rome, Barcelona, maybe London. Why should he include Prague or Czechia on that list?
Easy. That's a very easy question. It's beautiful. It's very safe.
Very safe.
It's very affordable. And it's also very well positioned. And if you go to Paris, you have to fly somewhere else, I guess. But here you can just hop on the train. You're in Berlin in 3 hours. You're in Vienna in 3 hours. You can do, like most people do, Prague, Vienna, Budapest, probably like just do the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So yeah, I think that's, also I think that Prague really nicely mixes the West and the East. Culturally, we've been much closer to Germany than we are to Russia, for instance. I think that people don't understand that fully if you come from overseas. But yeah, it's because it's cheap, it's beautiful, and it's very safe.
Very central.
And very central.
What are the tourists missing when they come here? When they come here and they don't have a guided tour with you or someone who can show them around, what are they're just coming and they're absolutely missing?
I think they should leave the city for a day. Just go somewhere else. Yeah?
Absolutely.
Because it's just cities, I get it, but they're very similar to each other. The lifestyle is very similar. I think you start getting the differences if you travel outside of the city. I mean, we've been doing these Moravian wine tours forever, and I think it's been the best thing we do for years, because you get to meet real people. There's a much closer connection. I generally dislike places where the only people you meet are people from the hospitality business.
Sure.
Like the classic example to me, and I'm sorry, I know people love it, but Bali. You go to Bali, you don't meet an accountant, ever. You just meet people who actually work in the hospitality industry. It's just completely separated from the rest of Bali, right? And Prague, I'm afraid the city center of Prague is a bit like that. People work in the city center in Prague, but they don't actually live. So for instance, people would tell me often, oh, I haven't seen a Czech with a pet. You don't do dogs here, right?
Everyone has a pet.
I'd be like, everybody has a dog here, but it's just people don't live in the city center.
Yeah.
So you don't see the real thing if you just stay in the city center. But I would just just kick it up a notch and don't just leave the city center, just leave the city.
Yeah.
Just go somewhere else. You hop on the train and in 2 hours you're in Brno, you're in Olomouc.
And it's so easy. They're a little bit intimidated by the language and how to buy a train ticket. Maybe I should do a video on that.
Yeah, maybe.
But that is so easy and
very
inexpensive,
easy,
and it is so worth it.
Absolutely. And then I think you get more immersed into the Czech reality. When you kind of suddenly, and people will speak English, just ask someone who looks younger and it'll be fine. And again, it's even safer than Prague, the rest of the country.
Yeah. How was your business affected by COVID?
Well, deeply. We don't have a business as it is right now. For the food tours, since people can't come in, we don't have a business. We had a team of 5. We had to let all of them go, really. I mean, during the summer, we had a few European tourists coming in, so we were able to give work to one. I'm not entirely sure we're a food tour company anymore, like not at this moment. I mean, when tourism restarts,
Yeah.
I think we would love to resume. I mean, like we love what we do. I think we're really good at it, and I think we have spread joy, you know, for years. I mean, this year in terms of income, it may have been like I'd say just 1% of like what's the income we had the year before.
Will anything change when COVID is solved? How do you think Prague will come back? Do you have any vision for what that could be, or will it simply return to what it was?
I would love to tell you that we will learn from this and we will reclaim the city center. Yeah. I think it really depends on how long this goes on. Yeah, and I would love to tell you that we're going to learn from this and like restart and start again. But I'm afraid we're just going to go back to what it used to be before because it's the easiest thing.
Yeah.
I mean, beer, cheap, you know, easy to fly into. It's all the ingredients you need for a stag party. So unless a different city will, you know, offer offer beer that is cheaper and like will be easier to fly into, will remain the kind of the capital of the stag party. You know. Tourism has had a really bad reputation in Prague for a very good reason because of like the mass tourism, the stag parties, and all of that. You know, it deserved it in a way. I would love to tell you it's going to restart in a different. It's going to, you know, come back better. I'm not entirely convinced. But it's our fault. What I want to say, it's our fault. It's the Czechs' fault. We let the city center go.
You know what was really lovely for me to see when we were in the very beginning of nobody traveling here. And then the Czechs started, I think we were still closed borders, but the Czechs started to come in. And I was on Charles Bridge, kind of like, I need to see what it's like empty, but it wasn't quite empty.
No.
And there were Czechs, and I could tell because everyone was speaking Czech walking past me. It was about 10% of the people that it normally is, 5%.
Yeah.
And they were eating rolik. They were eating trillik. They'd like go into the potraviny and gotten and I just thought, wow, like Prague has been something that is outpriced the typical Czech.
Yep.
It's like saying that an American can't go to New York City because only the Japanese and the Russians can afford to go there.
Like, it's true that we let the city center go, that we have surrendered it to the city, to tourism. We just become so used to not going to the city center.
Absolutely.
And so used to not seeing it as part of a town that you can actually eat at, live in, walk through. And it's not the tourists' fault, it's our fault.
Personally, I'm looking forward to the time when Prague is a place for both Czechs and tourists who want to travel like locals. Thanks for sitting down for our chat. And if you're looking for a cultural tour disguised as a food tour, you know who to get in touch with. We hope to see you soon in the Mother of Cities. Uvidíme se příští týden. Ahoj.